Welcome to Thriving Tribesmen. My name is Corey, your host, and I'm excited to be making this episode, getting her to take ownership of sex. This has been an idea that was floating around almost 4 or 5 weeks ago, and I was thinking about it, wrote a few notes around it. Generally, I would have jumped on the podcast and then made it a podcast episode to try and teach it. And usually I find that that's a way of really just getting my mind to start expanding on a concept. And a lot of it is more surrounding where I observe my own relationship and see what's the difference in contrast to the people that I'm talking to and their wives and what's going on. And one of the things that I noticed is that my wife takes ownership of the sex. What does that mean? It means that if we are not having sex, she feels uncomfortable by the lack of sex. And also, if there was an opportunity for us to have sex and then it didn't happen, she'll be just as disappointed as I am for not having it, and she'll be wanting to make amends for it, which is a little bit different from if the opportunity for sex arises and it doesn't happen, she doesn't feel a sense of relief that it didn't happen, which is where most people find their wives at, where she's relieved that, okay, at least we're not having sex, which is a terrible place to be. To a certain extent, maybe it's okay that she at least feels a bit of an internal pressure to want to do it. And obviously, we don't want her to feel internal pressure to the point where it's duty sex or, worse. Duty sex, or she's doing it out of a sense of obligation. So you want her to have this ownership for it, that, okay. And the reason why the ownership becomes important is that by getting her to take ownership, it changes the dimension of how you approach sex in your relationship. More importantly, for her to get to that point, it means that she's overcome a lot of discomfort towards sex. And some of that discomfort, as I recognize, and this was the key when I was coaching today, that some of it could be a case of lack of confidence around the bed. So earlier on within the relationship, you had sex, and the excitement of getting to know each other, or in inverted commas, the honeymoon period, meant that the climax and the excitement of having sex was pretty high, and you'd climax and orgasm pretty quickly, and it set the tone of what sex should look like, and it sets expectations of what sex should look like as well. So some people become very rigid to what it should be and what it should look like. And so I'm saying the lady, obviously, she would set a tone. And then as you guys evolve and you get to know each other, it can take this mundane, boring cycle, which then she thinks sex is just boring and maybe might not even see the value of it. And to a certain extent, most men, me included, we train our wives not to want sex. So we approach it from a shame perspective, like, oh, I'm ashamed that I want a lot of sex. I'm ashamed because I've got this libido that's pretty, pretty high. And we are very apologetic about the fact that we want sex with our wives. And we take this dynamic, or at least this frame of mind, where we're very apologetic about the fact that you are having to try and seduce her. And when she feels like she's not ready, as we've spoken about at length, that when you think about seduction, you have to think of it in 3 stages, that she's cold, warm, and hot. If she's in cold, we don't have the skill to move her along those levels. And because we don't have the skill to move her along those levels, and she remains in the cold, we then therefore put her at fault for the fact that she stays in cold, which then creates a weird dynamic around sex, or at least causes some discomfort around sex. So there's a lot of fault that falls on us for being in this situation, because at one point in your life, within your relationship, there was some ownership that she took, and we trained the ownership out of her. And when I say ownership, the sense of we need to have sex in order to have a sense of connection. So over a period of time, we've done things to destroy that. And we did it out of the sense of chivalry, like I'm really gonna make things a little bit easier for you. I'm gonna really not put you out. I'm not going to put any more burden around anything. So I'm really going to make you as comfortable as possible by making you not comfortable. By making life easier for you, you should make it easier for you to be able to engage in sex, which done the opposite thing. So the more you try to make life easier for her, the less likely she was going to come into sex, which is absolutely a mind fuck when you think about it, because it's so weird. And you're probably wondering, so how is it that you've come up with this information, and how is it that you... So I was thinking about this, and a lot of it was in the sense that I remember we used to go out quite a lot when I was a pickup artist, and it got to the point where it was not uncommon to go for a week without sleeping with 15 different women. And when I say 15 different women, you pick them up, and we used to go out 6 nights a week. So, and again, we used to do what we call day games. So you'd also pick up women during the day. So it was not uncommon to have sex 3 times or twice a day with 3 different women that we have met on that specific day, because the seduction cycle, the attraction seduction stuff became pretty easy, especially from a, we managed to start bending time, so where somebody would take several weeks with dates included in order to get to that level of comfort. We knew how to get that level of comfort pretty quickly. I'm saying this because I'm getting to a point that, because we'd got to that point where we're proficient in getting laid pretty quickly and consistently, when the woman came up and said, I'm really good at sex, generally her perspective was, I'm really hot, and 9 times out of 10 when she does have sex with a guy, the guy will orgasm pretty quickly because, wow, I'm with this really, really hot lady. So because he's orgasm pretty quickly without any level of skill from her, she just assumes that she's really got, because she's got evidence for it. I mean, this guy is orgasmed everywhere. So they get this sense of, I don't really need to invest that much in order to be really good. And it's the equivalent of this is, I can kick a football or soccer, I can dribble a little bit, but I'm not Lionel Messi, who is one of the best footballers that have ever lived, or Cristiano Ronaldo. So there is like massive levels to this stuff. So when it comes to picking up a girl and then she goes, oh, I'm really good in bed and I'm this amazing person, when it came to having sex, there would be below par. In fact, there would be sub-zero skill. It'd be absolutely horrible in terms of skill. And I'm thinking, well, I thought you said you were amazing. I mean, how did you think that you were amazing? And really, it just came down to the fact that they just had those brief encounters with few people, and those people would have orgasmed pretty quickly, and then they would have, say that that's good. Whereas for somebody who's having sex at least 2 or 3 times with different women every single day, in order for me to climax and get to the point where I can orgasm, she needed to bring a level of skill that was mind-blowing for me. So in terms of her standards and levels, they had to go massively up in order for me to get to the place where I think, okay, wow. So we started hitting this problem pretty consistently, which got us to thinking that most women don't have a clue when it comes to, pleasuring a man. There's a massive, for us, we didn't have the real records for it. We didn't, but for me personally, I would say a good 95% of women have got no skill, because they just feel like if I show enough boob, if I open my legs, and if I just make noises, the guy is most likely to come. So that's probably where the skill level is set. She might go down on you in terms of blowjob, which is probably the next level up. And then some might actually go on top of you and then do reverse cowboy or cowboy. Again, even then, they're not very good, because they sort of hump you, and there's no real consistent in and out from the vagina, which then is not as pleasurable for the guy, but it might be pleasurable for her. So again, there's some girls that are just really good at that. So they'll actually know that in order to really get maximum excitement from the guy, I need to be maximum penis out of the vagina and back into the vagina consistently while she's taking control of that. So there's, in terms of skills, so most women would operate on level 1 where they've got no skill whatsoever. So we started having to coach them, as in if she was really cool, and we to have an interaction around skill levels and standards and what it was real investment. And sometimes there were cases where you were in between having sex and it was not that good, but because you'd already had sex twice that day, or at least on that same very day, your pistol, lack of a better term, would think, this is boring, I'm not interested in having any more sex, and then we'll sort of die down, which was a massive blow to the girl, especially when she thinks she's really amazing. She'll be like, oh, how come you're soft now? And we obviously opened the conversation about this is not as exciting as I thought it was going to be, which was pretty open. Some women found it very difficult to take that sort of feedback, and some women were like, okay, challenge on, what do we do? But we started finding that in order to make it exciting for us, we had to figure out a way of training women how to get confident around arousal, around them raising their standards, and what that looks like in terms of getting the men excited. So there's certain things that we started working on. So one of them was I'll call it pre-game, or at least pre-sex excitement, or so pre-sex coaching, I'll put it that way. So when we are kissing and we are doing stuff outside of the bedroom, I will start getting comfortable with moving hands around my body, which then built confidence around her exploring my body before we get into bed. Because if we're in bed and then in her mind, she just needs to lay down and open her legs, and that being the pinnacle of her skill level, and again, just to backtrack a little bit, most guys also do take this frame of mind where they feel like they need to be giving her this mind-blowing orgasm, so they fixate on giving an orgasm and being very skillful and being considered very good in bed, rather than actually the sense of connection or the sense of collaboration within that sexual encounter, or even not more of a interaction within the encounter, so that it's a mutually beneficial thing where she's giving as much as she's receiving. Again, we're talking about ownership of the sex here. If she lays down and she's waiting for you to do everything, she's not taking ownership. She just feels like she's giving you this, I don't have to do anything. I just only have to be here for you to enjoy, which is, again, it does set a very negative dynamic, especially if it goes to a long-term relationship, because then she just doesn't get too much out of that relationship. Even though you're giving an orgasm, the orgasm isn't as valuable as when you give a sense of connection, or at least a level of excitement that is beyond the orgasm, which is, again, her investing into that interaction as much as you are investing into it. There's the equivalent to it, and just to give you a mental image around this, is that if you went into a sex session and then she got, the reward was an orgasm for her without having to do anything, it starts devaluing the orgasm over a period of time. And equivalent to this would be if you were going for a marathon or running a long distance. The initial part of trying to get into the running is all mental barrier, where you have to get over the fact that you're actually going out running, and then you have to wear your shoes and your gear, and then you have to psych yourself up to start running. And then when you start running, the first mile is completely difficult. Everything in your body is telling you to go back to the house, and then by the time you get to sort of the third, fourth mile, then all of a sudden you take this tone where, because you've invested so much into this, you now want to see it through. And by the time you get to the place where you finish, you're so euphoric because you've invested so much time into that running, and you get so much more dopamine release, and you feel great about the fact that you've run, to the point that that feeling then empowers you to go on the following day. Now, this is very important because, again, the ownership of you getting better at running, it will build over a period of time. The less resistance that you have to actually get into your shoes and then start running, the more you get to the point, because the more investment that you put into the running, the more you feel ownership towards it. So when you do it for, let's say, 14 days, for example, on day 15, you for some whatever reason you don't run, you feel a sense of something missing that you have not done on that day. So you now feel like, oh, I wish I had just gone for the run, or you feel something missing throughout the day because you've been consistent with that investment. So when it comes to sex, in order for her to get ownership, she has to have involvement. Now, most women, because they lack the skill, this becomes a source of discomfort, because she doesn't know, okay, how do I navigate around this? How do I get him aroused? How do I get him, feeling ravenous for me in that level of desire where so they lack the skill, and they don't. And sometimes it's not even the lack of skill. They might actually know what they need to do, but they can't get over themselves. So some body image stuff. Some of it is probably perception stuff, that if I do this, what if he thinks I'm some type of whore, for example. Even if you've been married for a long period of time, she's like, okay, if I do this, this is what a whore will do. So therefore, I don't want to do this because I don't want to be associated by that. So again, it's her getting over some of these things, and you can train her to get over that stuff by you then leading her outside of the bedroom as you kiss and you interact, especially on the attraction stuff. In fact, one exercise I gave to a client recently was that when you start coming in for kisses, you can grab her by the butt, for example, and grab her hand and then put it by your butt. And just that movement is enough to get her feeling what it's like to go and explore your body. Or when you're kissing her, grab hold of her hand and then just lay it on your chest. It's non-threatening, non-sexual, or in terms of commitment, but it's enough to get her to the feeling of you are guiding her to explore your body, which builds a level of comfort, which then when you do have sex, you can transition and do the same. So you can show her where it might be exciting for you, and also where she can go in order to explore. And again, this is now trying what I'm beginning to call building some competence, and as she builds up that competence, she then also builds up simultaneously some confidence. So it's something that will over a period of time, she will build up in terms of skill. The more skill that she builds up, the more confidence that she builds up. And this skill is just going to be, like I was saying to the client, that it's initially, when you go through this process, it's going to feel, difficult. It's going to feel quite clumsy. It's going to feel very awkward. And you allow those things to happen, but it's the interaction that you're having through that process that then gets her to the place where she's beginning to learn how to explore your body, to learn how to pleasure you. And as she builds confidence around that, it gives her a sense of ownership, because as she gets better at it, she's like, okay, it's like I was saying, the analogy of the running. For example, the longer you're running, the more consistent you're running, without feeling tired as well. In terms of endurance, if your endurance grows over a period of time, it's going to continue getting you into a place where you this is my thing. I'm a runner. So, and again, in fact, somebody was saying recently, and I thought that was pretty cool, that this guy who decided, I want to learn how to play drums. And he got everything all together, and then when the drums arrived, to put it all together, he realized, oh, I've got no clue what to do in terms of playing drums. But he also needed one piece of equipment, and he ended up going to a music store. He goes to this music store, And then he's speaking to the guys that I bought some drums, and this is what stuff that I need. And then it just so happened that there was a guy over there who goes, "Oh, I give lessons for drums. If you would like to try, I'll give you a free lesson." So this guy shows him what to do, or he plays the drums first to show him what he can do, and then the other guy who's just bought drums tries to play the drums, and it's pretty shit. Like, he couldn't even replicate what he was doing. So he says, "Okay, this is what you need to do." So he shows him what to do. Then he says, "Well, sign up for some lessons, and then when you come for those lessons, you will improve over time." So he does this. 5 lessons in, he says, I ended up doing this routine, and it was close to flawless. And for the first time in his mind, he realized that he was a drummer. So before that, he just thought, "Oh, it's somebody else, I'm just learning." And for the first time when he decided, "I'm a drummer," he said from that day on, he found it so much easier to learn and so much easier because at that point he took ownership for the thing. So again, this is the transition that we're looking for from a sexual standpoint. And I know that a lot of you guys, I think the big stumbling block is the fact that she doesn't feel confident in seduction. She doesn't feel confident in approaching you from a seduction standpoint and giving you the excitement that she knows that she can, or she should be. So again, it's that her participation within that sexual interaction that is a stumbling block, because then she feels like, I'm not confident I don't know what to do in this bit. And part of it, she, instead of her saying, I don't know what to do, she would rather look internally and think, oh, I feel really shit about this. So she would then rather shame you for wanting to have sex, because she's like, no, I don't. So she will shame you, she'll blame you, she'll do whatever she can to not end up in that place where she can feel uncomfortable, where she needs to invest into the relationship, which is absolutely a crazy part. So I know I've really gone a little bit deeper on this one. We talked a little bit about that familiarization. So she gets familiar with some of the things that we do. So, and a good example of this is that when I used to be the guy who used to teach guys on the seduction piece of it. And one of my favorite things to teach was the 5-finger necklace. Most guys would not do it because they think, oh, that is extremely rough. So if I was kissing her, grabbing a bunch of her hair and then tugging is extreme excitement. She's like, she doesn't know what to do. It's quite scary from a scary perspective. So she's like, fucking hell, what the fuck is going on? But at the same time, because I'm calm and I've got a level of calm, and I'm not, it doesn't work if you're anxious and you're thinking about tugging her hair, and she'll pick up on the anxious feeling, and then she'll feel uncomfortable when you do it. But if I'm cool and relaxed and feeling that sort of feeling where I just feel real dominant, grab a bunch of her hair and then tug it, she will go even more wild. Again, this is now tapping into that, what's that book called? Whatever it's called. 50 Shades of Grey. It taps into some of that where, again, if I was kissing her, I would hold, or put my hand close enough to her neck, and then, especially if I'm close to a wall, then I would shove her into the wall just a little bit for her to feel a sense of me coming on and then putting my pressure on her. Again, this is outside where I'm familiarizing her with the fact that things can get a little bit rough. And it's me figuring out to see how much of that she can take. So if she's okay with that and she gets a little bit excited, I can progress that to putting my whole hand around the neck, just putting it on her neck and seeing how she responds to that. If she gets a level of discomfort, then I know that it's not a good idea then to squeeze. But if she gets really, really excited, then I would squeeze a little bit, but not enough to obviously block a windpipe, but enough to get her even more excited. And again, it plays into that bit where she's having to surrender more and more, and that sense of surrender is her actually trying to get ownership within that interaction, which is absolutely wild. This is probably one of those lessons where again, you need to have had some coaching around some of this stuff, I'm just opening your mind towards the sense of that you can get ownership based off of how you interact, or at least approach some of the sexual interactions, especially when you're kissing and so on. You can get it to explore your body, to familiarize with some of those things. And in terms of your nipples, whether it's, again, getting it to hold your hand, and then you get use a hand to rub your nipples as you're kissing. Again, it's just getting it to explore that and see that that's okay. Another move around that would be you guys kissing, and then using her hand to hold your crotch or hold your piece. Again, doing so is new, uncomfortable, and so on, but you're getting her to familiarize with that, which then when you're within the bed, she's already familiar with it, she's more likely to want to do it, or at least explore that. Again, it's just that different way of interacting during sex that then builds that up. So just to finish this off, one of the things that got me to a place where I understood this pretty well is that for some reason I decided I was going to become the world's greatest. I'm going to make every woman that I meet to squirt. So it became my life's mission to want to make every woman squirt. And I noticed that there was some mental barriers around it, that she wouldn't relax when it was time to squirt. And then when she did come to the point where she was going to squirt, the peeing side of things was overcoming that. Okay, I've got this big sense of peeing. I don't want to pee, otherwise I'll be embarrassed because I would have peed myself, and so on. So getting it to quiet down and then just allow it to happen was then a complete skill. So again, we started coming to a place where she was able to follow my command and feel comfortable following my command during sex. Again, something that I was building familiarization outside of the bedroom, which then when I came to the bedroom, she could trust me when I say, just let go, just pee, that's okay. So again, you gradually do that outside of the bedroom, so that when you go into the bedroom, she's familiar with it, and then she's more comfortable doing it. Which is, now, I don't want you guys to go out and then start having aggressive sex and saying that this is what is, like I said, is gradual build-up. And some of it, you need to actually have a few discussions around this so that she's aware that this is happening. So for example, we're going to try a few things. It's going to require you to be, put some investment. It's going to require you to be, some of it is going to be quite uncomfortable. I'm willing for us to try some of this stuff. And, you talk about it and see, so that she knows that this is the process where we're going. And again, if she says no, then you can slowly talk about why it's uncomfortable for her, and so it gives you that open conversation around it, so you can slowly build up towards it. Now, I know this is I'm still got lots to say, and I'm about to run out of time to actually say some of the stuff that I need to say, but I think I've said enough for you guys to have an idea of what it might take to get her to take ownership of sex. I know I've taken the sort of bondage type route, but that's just one side of it. There's other bits where, of course, you can, in terms of blowjobs, hand jobs, getting comfortable around that. What does that look like? And this means when she's taking ownership for sex, that means that when you are out camping, for example, and you can't quite have sex, then she's willing to take ownership and then give you a hand job, for example, and what that looks like. So even if it was a case of maybe she's on a period and maybe you guys both don't want to do anything that is messy, she's willing to then go and give you a blowjob, for example, and say, and get you really excited to the point that you orgasm. So again, that's her taking ownership for it and figuring out what that looks like in terms of giving you an orgasm around just that. So for example, even just discussing what hand job looks like before you guys have sex, getting her to stroke and getting her excited and showing how excited you are around that, and the comfort, or at least not excited around it, but what I mean is showing her that this is what is pleasurable when she does this bit. Is again becomes a lesson for her, so for her to actually start understanding what that looks like in terms of excitement. So I'm going to knock it on the head here, and I thank you very much for listening. If you've gone for 30 minutes, I didn't realize it was going to go this long, but it is what it is. But like I said, I've still got loads to teach around this. I'm definitely going to make a masterclass around this, which is going to be part of the community. I'm still writing notes around this. I think this is going to be a really important lesson for anybody that's changing a sexless relationship, because she has to take ownership of sex within your relationship. When she does take ownership, it's going to change everything for you guys. So thank you very much, guys. I'll be seeing you guys soon. Take care.